Hey friends, welcome back to another Beach Point Kids Friday Funday Variety Show. Welcome back to another Beach Point Kids Friday Funday Variety Show. Each Friday, we've got a show filled with wacky, crazy silliness, all recorded for you. Today, we are talking about rescue stories. There are so many stories all throughout the Bible and all throughout history where God has rescued his people from sadness, terror, sure destruction, and even death. In fact, the Bible is one giant story all about how God's perfect love came down from heaven to rescue all people. But we'll get to that wonderful and incredible story on Sunday. Today's death-defying story involves a pit of ferocious, wild lions. But before we get to that, let's start it out with a game. Here we go. Hey friends, today is all about rescue, and so we are going to play a game that involves rescuing the green M&Ms from the rest of the color M&Ms. We're going to take a straw and we're going to try to suck up as many green M&Ms and transfer them to the safety of this bowl in 1 minute's time. So whoever gets the most green M&Ms into the other bowl using only the straw is the winner. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, ready, set, go.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me catch my breath first. I think purely by looking at them, I think you won. But we might have to count. All right, let's
we'll
count. I got 35.
I got 40.
Wow, good job. Things were not looking good for God's people. They had been captured and taken far from home, and now they were slaves of the king of Babylon. But God had not left his people. He was with them and he was looking after them. Daniel loved God and obeyed him. Now God made Daniel able to understand lots of difficult things, so it wasn't long before the king of Babylon noticed him. King Darius liked how clever Daniel was, so he made Daniel the most important helper of all, and put him in charge of lots of other helpers. But the other helpers didn't like him. They wanted the king to like them best. They wanted to get rid of Daniel. So they spied on Daniel. They tried to find things wrong with Daniel, things they could tell the king, things they could, but there weren't any at all. None. They couldn't find anything at all. Except there was just this one thing. Every day, 3 times a day, without fail, no matter what, Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. They smiled to themselves. Let's get the king to make a law. No one is allowed to pray to anyone except to the king. Daniel won't obey this law and he will be punished. They were pleased with themselves for being so clever and hurried off to tell the king. The king liked their idea. He didn't know that they were tricking him. So he made it into a law. Everyone must pray, only to me. If you don't, the lions will have you for their dinner. Daniel heard this. He knew it was wrong to pray to anyone except God. He had to do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die. So Daniel went to his room, closed the door, and prayed. That's just what the bad men knew Daniel would do. They skipped straight off to tell the king, "Oh, your most glittering highness, your law says, does it not, that everyone must pray to you alone, sire?" "Yes," said the king. "Oh, majestrial brightness, then correct us if we're wrong, but it would seem that Daniel is praying to God, not to you." The king was sad. He had been tricked. He didn't want to hurt Daniel, but he couldn't change the law. And so he let the soldiers throw Daniel to the lions. "May your God, who you love so much, rescue you," the king said. The king went back to his palace, but he didn't sleep that night, not a wink. He tossed and he turned until finally, at the first glimmer of dawn, he leaped from his bed and ran straight to the den. "Daniel," he cried, "has your God rescued you?" "Yes," shouted Daniel. God sent an angel to close the lions' mouths. And there, resting his head on Daniel's lap, was the biggest lion, purring like a kitten. The king brought Daniel out of the den. "Look," he said, "Daniel doesn't even have a scratch." The king made a new law. Daniel's God is the true God, the God who rescues. Pray to him instead. God would keep on rescuing his people, and the time was coming when God would send another brave hero, like Daniel, who would love God and do what God said, whatever it cost him, even if it meant he would die. And together they would pull off the greatest rescue the world had ever known. All right, here we are. We're playing another game that has to do with rescue. Underneath this pile of whipped cream is a piece of bubble gum. We're going to have to rescue the bubble gum from the whipped cream, chew the bubble gum, and blow a bubble. First person to blow a successful bubble is the winner. Okay,
Right.
I gotta take my glasses off.
Yeah. All right. Ready, set, go. I have a beard.
The gum is so soft I can't get it to blow a bubble.
Oh. Yeah, it popped.
That was a bubble. It popped, but that was a bubble. Victory!
Right.
There was a tree in the found now. I want you to see what I found out. I was lost on the journey, prayed and God heard me. Then he told me he loves me and said I am worthy. Even though I was lost, he's always been there. When I realized that, I stopped being scared. I started being bold when I found that he cared. The Lord leads this journey and he's always prepared. Now my whole life is changed, it will never be the same. My path has a light now cause God leads the way. He blessed us with treasure, his treasure is grace. So put your hands up, let's lift up his name. Life is forever when Jesus is guiding me. My life is better when I choose to follow him. He gives us everlasting life and it won't never end. So I put my hands up and dance because I'm free. I tell the whole world that Jesus Christ died for me. Jesus Christ died for me. And dance because I'm free. I tell the whole world that Jesus Christ died for me. Jesus Christ died for me.
Today's story isn't a story of a brave lion tamer, but of a man who was tossed into a den of lions expecting to die. This is the story of a man of great faith who looked death straight in the face and discovered that God is stronger even than the king of all the beasts. Daniel was a prophet who served God for many years. He rose to great prominence in the kingdom of Babylon as an advisor to King Nebuchadnezzar, and he continued to serve the kings of Persia when Babylon was defeated. King Darius trusted Daniel more than any other man in his court, and it was out of jealousy that Daniel's enemies wrote the unfair law that sent him to the lions. There was never a question of what Daniel would do. The question was, would God protect his servant? God showed that he is greater than any king and stronger than any beast. God shut the mouths of the lions and the mouths of Daniel's enemies. Daniel's adventure in the lion's den proved to King Darius and to us that God is mighty to save those who believe in him, and that God is a God who rescues his people and brings them to safety. Daniel loved and trusted God, and when Daniel was faced with a choice to continue to worship God and face the lions, or to stop worshiping God and worship the king instead, Daniel chose to worship God. I'm sure Daniel was quite terrified as he was led off to face the lions. But Daniel knew that God was bigger and greater than any punishment he could ever face. Daniel knew that it was God who created the lions and that God would be with him when he faced them. We can be sure that if we're following God's lead and that if we're choosing to trust and follow him, he will not ever leave us alone to face our fears by ourselves. The King of Kings was stronger than the king of the beasts, the lions, and greater than any king in Persia. He stands with those who stand for him, and when we're in danger, he's mighty to save us. He is our great rescuer. We know that not just because of the story of Daniel, but because of the entire big God story. There are so many stories of God rescuing his people all throughout history, but we also know that the entire book of the Bible is about God's great rescue of you and I. So the next time you feel scared or uncertain, remember that God sent his son Jesus to be the ultimate rescuer. He sent him to come down to earth, to die on a cross, to raise to life again, so that we could have God with us always. When you're afraid, remember who made you and who loves you. Remember that God is always with you, that he is the ultimate rescuer. And remember, don't be afraid of lions. All right, have fun, and God will be your strength. See you next time, friends.